Hey everybody, Alan Brochstein from New Cannabis Ventures and 420 Investor here with the weekly cannabis market update. This was a rough week, not only for the overall market, but especially for cannabis stocks. I'll get over that later, but it all fits into the pattern that I see, which is that we have put in a bear market bottom, but we're not yet in a bull market. I think we are working towards that. Okay, so I do this video each week so that I can update my network of non-subscribers. I'm hoping that I can maintain these relationships, but also that some of you will consider joining 420 Investor. As a reminder, I'm wearing a face mask because I was injured in a hit-and-run bicycle accident. A car hit me and then it sped off. And I was in the hospital for 2 months. I'm doing great now, but I'm missing 4 teeth, among other things. And I'm going next week to do the prep work for getting my bridge. I might have said dentures in the past. It's actually a bridge. And so hopefully in about 2 weeks, plus or minus a week, so I guess within 3 weeks, I should have this mask off. I don't have COVID. It's not about COVID, and it's about protecting you from looking at a big hole in my mouth. Okay, so with that, let's talk about the week. And this is all information I share with my subscribers at 420 Investor when it came out. And I also published something at New Cannabis Ventures on this one. The Canadian cannabis sales were released by CanStat and StatsCan, I'm sorry. And the month of July was better than expected, and it showed 1% sequential growth over June. I'm sorry, that's June I'm talking about, over May. And so there's one less day in June, but it went up 1%. That's like up 4% on a same number of days concept. And it was up 22% from a year ago, an expansion. So the Canadian market has really slowed down, but it's still growing. And not only that, but the growth rate appears to be, the decline appears to be stabilizing, and maybe it will increase. So that was the big news of the week. 377.5 million Canadian is what the cannabis retail sales were in June. And then so each week I give a lot of written work to my subscribers at 420 Investor. And this week I did more financial previews. And I titled that one, Financial Previews for 10 More Focusless Names. I did 10 the week before, I think 5 the week before. I have 32 names on the focus list, and almost all of them have reported. We're still waiting for Jushi and State House. Those are the only 2, I believe, that are remaining. And then, of course, the Aurora year-end was in June, and we're waiting for that as well. But that's due in September, not August. Those other 2 August. And then the other 3 pieces are my regular Friday afternoon works of the cannabis subsector review, the 420 Investor Model Portfolio Composition, where I compare it to the index. I compare them to the index. And then finally, what I'm reading you right now, last week I put out the 420 Investor Weekly Review. That's what I'm basing this discussion off of. And I'm going to include a link to this week's that I published yesterday. But in fact, maybe I should change the way I do that and just have it in the column. So let's go over the news on the focus list. We are wrapping up the bulk of earnings season this week. And this is not a great earnings season for cannabis. We've seen some real disasters, of course. And this week there were some challenges as well. One that did well, though, was Ascend. And Ascend had some other news during the week. They announced an agreement to acquire a 3 dispensary shop in Ohio. That'll give them 5. And they also told us that they're not going to be buying MedMen anymore. The MedMen New York, I should say. And I don't think that's a big deal. The deal just fell apart, and I think it was MedMen's fault, if I understand it correctly, that they don't want it anymore. And so I don't think it's a positive, but I don't think it's a big negative. And then before I get to the earnings, the company also started adult use sales at its New Jersey store in Montclair. Now, the report itself showed a 15% sequential increase in revenue to 197. No, that's not right. I got it written down wrong. 97.5 million. And I will get that updated. And not 197. So they report gross revenue, and that was like 100 and something. But then I changed it to net revenue. I forgot to get the one off. And then adjusted EBITDA was almost 21 million. It was a good report, a good call, and the stock has been advancing. It was up this week in a down week for the overall market. The next one is Air, and they had a terrible report. They also introduced their Levia water-soluble tinctures in Nevada and Arizona, but the company had a soft Q2. Revenue was only 110.1 million, a little bit below expectations, and adjusted EBITDA of 19.6 million. And I think the thing that was troubling was their guidance. Columbia Care also reported early in the week, and their Q2 revenue was a little bit less than expected at 129.6 million, with adjusted EBITDA of only 12 million. And it sounded like they're getting ready for the Cresco merger, and they said in the press release that they expect that merger to close before year end. And I've had some question about that, so I'm glad to hear that they think it's going to close at year end. Is it the end of the world? If not, no. So I think it's a good merger. That's a different story. Canopy Growth announced that Martha Stewart CBD has launched a new flavor in its gummies portfolio. It's called Pumpkin Spice. Cresco Labs had a solid Q2. And at a time where some companies are missing and giving weak guidance, their quarter, it was only up 2% sequentially and 4% from a year ago to 218.2 million. But that was what was expected. It was solid. And there's reasons for the slowdown. The adjusted EBITDA was 51 million, a 23% margin. All right, Green Lane. And, we published an interview with the CEO, Nick Kovacevic, at New Cannabis Ventures yesterday. And I would urge you, if you care about the company, to read that. They had a rough quarter. They were supposed to do about 50 million. Instead, they did about 40 million in revenue. And it was a 14% sequential decline. Adjusted EBITDA was negative 5.8 million. And the company is selling some real estate in its headquarters town of Boca Raton for 10 million in a deal that closes in September. And that's once again an example of the company, which has balance sheet struggles, raising capital in a non-dilutive format. And then Planet 13, kind of a weak quarter there, only 28.4 million in revenue. That was up 11% sequentially, but it sounded like the outlook there's dimmer. And adjusted EBITDA was only 3 million, so a lower ratio than others. And the stock sold off this week. True Leaves had a little piece of news. They opened up a dispensary in Auburndale, Florida. Tilt Holdings reported an 11% sequential revenue growth to 47.1 million. This is the one company I'm aware of that does both ancillary and MSO. They're an MSO in 3 states, and Ohio, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and then they're developing an MSO business in New York with an Indian tribe. And the rest of the report, adjusted EBITDA was positive 1.1 million. And so the stock traded off a little bit, and I think it was not a bad quarter. And their filings are out too. Tilray got approval in Poland to sell medical cannabis, and TerrAscend is opening a Cookies Corners in their Lodi, New Jersey store. And urban-gro had a disappointing quarter. Their revenues were below expectations at only $16.3 million, with a $500,000 loss on adjusted EBITDA. And their guidance was a lot lower, 10 to 11 million for Q3 in revenue, so that's down like a third sequentially, and adjusted EBITDA loss expanding from $500,000 loss to 2.5 million. So kind of some near-term problems in that report. And Village Farms expanded their relationship with Simon Fraser University for doing cannabis research with Pure Sun Farms. And then Verano is our last reporting company of my focus list of 32 names. And they introduced the brand Savvy for flower and extract in seven of their core markets. So they are expanding. Q2 was a miss on profitability, which I had predicted, by the way. And I don't know if I predicted it for the right reason, but I was correct. Their adjusted EBITDA was only 22% of revenue. And I know that their 2023 outlook has been for 42%. So they're not expanding, they're contracting. And they reported revenue of 224 million, which was pretty good, up 11% sequentially. And the company also announced a distribution agreement with Tyson 2.0 for their Ric Flair drip cannabis. And then finally, they opened up their 56th Florida medical cannabis dispensary and their 4th in West Virginia. So that's the news. And now I'd like to shift to the performance. Like I said earlier, it was a tough week in the cannabis sector. We at New Cannabis Ventures maintain the global cannabis stock index, and it fell 3.3% this week. I know the S&P 500 fell less, and it's down 54% this year, and in August it's down 2.3% now. So that's kind of going against the overall stock market, and it kind of fits into my bottoming process, not a bull market. I think that we're shifting to a bull market. It just hasn't really started yet, and we've seen, because we're in earnings season, we're getting some bad reports right now that are kind of reflective of the past, not the future, and it's weighing on the stocks. So that was the market performance, and it was, that decline was mainly yesterday. And then looking at my model portfolios, I run 3 model portfolios. The first is Flying High. I launched that in 2013, and it's up 2,176% since I launched it. And a lot of people think, oh, that's all in the early days. No, it consistently does well. And not this week, it was down 4.5%, but it's still up 2.5% this month, and it was up 21.7% in July. It's my trading model portfolio. So not a great week, but we're having a good month and a great quarter. For the year even, it's supposed to be better than cash. And we know that cash has a positive but low return this year, not Flying High. It's down, let's see if I can find that. It's down 25.7% this year. And then 420 Opportunity and 420 Quality, they are both longer term focused, and they're measured against the global cannabis stock index, which I told you is down over 54% this year. Well, 420 Opportunity did fall this week, but not so much different than the index. It was down 2.5%, and it's up 2.5% in August after being up 19% in July. my model portfolios are performing exceptionally well. And then 420 quality was down 3.4% this week. It had a rougher week, but it's up still 1.3% in August. And that's ahead of the index. And both of those are down year to date about 43%. And so they're both doing a lot better than the index, and that's the goal. That's consistent, that outcome. And finally, I'd like to wrap it up with just a discussion of a diminishing feature. This has been a busy week, busy month, I mean, for earnings reports. For companies that report in December, that have their fiscal years end in December, the time they have to report is in August, mainly in the first half of August, depending on where they trade, but possibly until late August. So we're going to get some more reports, but the bulk of them are over. The big companies, they're all over. And I think the mindset is about to shift from being negative to more positive because of that. When we're hit with bad news, it's hard for the market to go up. We saw some great examples, though, with hydrofarming getting crushed and then rallying, grow generation getting crushed and then rallying, and even Scott's hasn't filled the gap yet, but it got crushed and rallied too. So the market takes that bad news and buys the dips. So this week is kind of light. We have Green Rose reporting on Monday after the close. And then on Thursday, it's a busier day. We have OnWave doing its Q3 report and Slang doing its Q2 report in the morning. And then in the afternoon, Posibit and XS Financial have their Q2 reports after the close. So that's really it. And please consider, if you want guidance, joining 420 Investor. You can join, and if you decide in the first 30 days it's not for you, you get a full refund. Most people stick around because it's great. I've been doing this for over 9 years now, and I love it, and I'm 100% involved in making it even better. Thank you.